the riffraff in the cheap seats. So, you know, we're here to talk about the future of tourism. I have a bad rap. Every time I come on to talk about tourism, people tell me I always bring a kind of a doom and gloom side to tourism. And then I'm always telling people that there's this, you know, scaring people about traveling because there's so much going on between climate change and fuel crises that we're going through at the moment. What's going on with even markets crashing and, you know, the euro right now. And I don't want to do that today. So we have a lot to celebrate in tourism as well, right? So today, let's talk on a more positive note about tourism. There's one great thing that's happened that was just announced that in 2012, we are going to, for the first time ever, surpass 1 billion tourists. Yeah. So when you consider that I used to use these statistics all the time, that in 2008, we had about 866 million tourists, and the UN WTO expected that we'd have 1.6 billion by the year 2020. We're actually ahead of schedule. So tourism is growing faster than they ever anticipated. So this is a good thing. So a lot of people who are in the business, this is a good business to be in. There's not many industries that can say they're going to double over the course of, you know, a 10, 15-year period. So all of that is great news for the tourism industry. And, you know, the issue that, you know, that we've always had is how much money actually stays in the country. And this statistic from the United Nations Environment Program stated that every $100 spent on vacation by a tourist of a developed country, only $5 actually stays in country. So actually, it's not the fact that people aren't traveling, it's the idea that when you do travel, people have to be a bit more conscious and have a bit more purpose when they travel. I really can't see anything. I'm just going to imagine everyone in their underwear. I can't see a thing. I'm just talking to a big light. So, you know, I know you guys, everyone came just to hear and listen, but I need you to think for just a minute, okay? So I want everyone just to imagine, as I'm going to take you a little bit of a journey. I know you guys have probably all seen these videos that are on the internet about if you could, you know, if you could shrink the world into 100 people. So let's just imagine that for a minute, because those videos are pretty popular. If you could take all of the people around the world and you condense them into just 100 people, what would that look like? So we're going to, just for the sake of argument here, we're going to create a little village. We'll create this little village in here. We have more than 100 people in here, obviously, but if we took the whole world and put them into one little village, what would that look like? So 61 would be Asian, right? And 13 would be from Africa. 5 would be from North America. 12 would be from, oh my goodness, I'm in denial that I can see. South and Central America? Or is that Africa? I'm just kidding. And 12 would be from Europe. And then 1 would be from Oceania, or Australia, New Zealand, or, you know, the South Pacific. So that's our little village, right? So we've now condensed the world down to 100 people. So, and so out of those 100 people now, if you actually looked at that village, you know, what would the actual people be doing in that village? And you'd find that out of your 100 people, 44 people would not have basic sanitation. Out of our 100 people, right? And out of the 20 people would have no access to safe drinking water. Again, so you take about a fifth of the world doesn't have access to safe drinking water. So we're just kind of still imagining our little village here. And then we would take the next statistic and it says that 80% of the world's energy, our world is only our village, so 80% of the world's energy would be consumed by 20 people. So there's that many people. It's a small amount of people that are actually consuming the energy in the world today. And 20 people would be hungry or severely malnourished. So that gives you an idea of what would happen if we did that. But I think to make my point, one of the most staggering things would happen to be how the wealth was distributed. Because 47 people would struggle to survive on $2 a day in our village. Okay? And then additional 18 people would live on $1 per day in our village. So our village is now getting quite threatened, right? Half of our village wealth would belong to just 2 people. Just 2 people. And 59% of the world's wealth, or our village's wealth, would be owned by 6 people. And they'd be all Americans. Americans in the house? Give us some money. We have no sanitation down here. Okay, so 1% of the world's wealth, 1% of the entire wealth of the village would be broken up into 50 different people. So that gives you ideas if you condense that of what the world would look like, right? Just to give everyone an opportunity to kind of, as I kind of set up where I'm going here, if you entertain me for a moment. If you have food, clothing, a bed, and a roof over your head, representing the working class or middle class, you'd be better off than 83 of our fellow villagers. So this is what the world looks like today. And when you look at it, I will break it down into a more simple graph that just kind of shows where wealth is distributed. 6% of the people own 59% of the world's wealth. 17 represent the working and middle class. You have 18 people live on $1 per day, 47 on $2 per day, and 12 people live just below the poverty line. So that's what our village looks like that we're living in. And so the next fact that we have is that according to the World Bank, they did a report called Voice of the Poor. Next to illness and injury, entrepreneurial activity and the ability of jobs is the most important factor in determining the fate of the poor. So today what I wanted to discuss, because as we were kind of preparing for the future of tourism, I was thinking about what we really want with our company, what we really want to see, and how our company can have a positive impact on people's lives by its mere existence. We're not a charity, we're a for-profit company. We don't like to blur that line between, we do things a certain way because of what we believe in and what our values are as a business, but we're still a for-profit company. But the issue that's, really, if you're in your village of 100 people and you're one of those, few people that's controlling all the wealth, or you're one of the, 40 people, 47 people that are living on $1 per day, living in that village is going to have some really unusual dynamics. And if you think about it, the biggest issue that we face right now, as we think around the world, is the distribution of wealth. And there's all these kind of arguments about the distribution of wealth. As a matter of fact, presently, in the election, it is the biggest issue. One of the biggest issues in the election that's going on in the US right now is we have one candidate who believes in the distribution of wealth, and we have one candidate that does not believe in the distribution of wealth. And so these arguments go both ways. And this next slide is going to give everyone a headache. I'm not going to attempt to read it. And I actually learned once in my public speaking class, I should never put so much text on the slide, but who cares? But just give you an idea of the arguments for or against. There's lots of arguments for or against wealth distribution. What you believe, depends on what situation you live in, or with your own experiences. But there's a huge gap, obviously, between the rich and the poor, and it's growing. And these arguments, there's the moral argument about religion, there's the fairness argument, there's economic efficiency arguments, and then the arguments against about, that the people with more money have the ability to create jobs, and as they create more jobs, it kind of evens out because that's a way of dealing with wealth distribution. So when you look at that little village that we created here tonight, you'll see that everyone in that village starts getting disruptive because some people are living in big houses and big mansions, and some people have no basic sanitation, right? And so we're angry. We're angry. All over the world, there's just so much anger because of the huge, the disparity we see between the rich and the poor. We're like Nickelback fan angry. That's like really angry. Are you guys the ones that buy the albums? Because I've never met anyone. Seems to be always around. Anyway, so we're so angry and we're made to feel guilty. So when we're successful, right? When we're successful, we're made to feel guilty. And so what's happened we're in the worst economy of our time at the moment, right? Yet, staggeringly, giving is at an all-time high. Right? People are making less, are unemployed, but they're giving at a rate that has never been seen before. Donations are up and people are giving like they've never seen before. Because we want to do something, we want to give. So we look for any local kind of NGO, and anything that kind of represents us. Maybe it's you like animals, maybe you like, the environment, maybe you like, you gave your money to AIDS research, whatever it is that you choose. There's something inside you when the world is at this point where you just want to give more. And we're all in a giving mood, right? And then the UNWTO and the World Trade Organization, the WTO, came up with the statement that poverty is one of the greatest global challenges we face today. I mean, I don't think there's been too much money coming up with that, but it's, is that a news flash for anyone? I saw it and I said, oh my gosh, I think they're right. Now that they say it, this is a problem. So we have this real big problem now with and the thing that's amazing is as tourism grows, people are still going on vacation, right? People are still going along, people are still happy, because tourism is growing. I showed you those numbers. 1 billion tourists this year. Travel industry is doing great. It's cheaper and easier to fly than ever before. There's so many discount airlines. You can fly now to Asia. You can fly all over the place. So much cheaper. It's so much easier for you to get places. And there's so much competition, so it's being commoditized now. Travel's being commoditized. You can go cheap. You can go to all-inclusive now. Eat and drink as much as you want for $8.99. It's great. Like, life is good. I can stay drunk, and I can, get fat for a week. It's so awesome. But according to the WTTC, in the next 10 years, as the industry grows, tourism will be 10% of the global GDP, or $10 trillion. $10 trillion. So this is what I'm proposing tonight. Couldn't tourism and what we do when we travel be the greatest form of wealth distribution that ever existed? What if you didn't have to give money to your local NGO because they came knocking at your door? The best marketers are in the world. UNICEF. They're everywhere. Salvation Army. Oh my goodness. Can't get away from them. They're everywhere. And you see them, and they show you the commercials, you see or you see the puppies in the cages with the Sarah McLachlan song. And stick a fork in your ear, and you say, why? Why is that puppy in the cage? I'm just going to pick up the phone and donate. Right? Because I'm going to save that puppy. But what if tourism, with $10 trillion generated annually, could actually be the greatest form of wealth distribution that the world's ever seen? What would have to happen for that to occur? That's my question. So what if we actually looked at tourism as creating a movement? Like tourism is, there's all kinds of questions right now of what tourism really is. Like, how do they gauge what tourism is? Is tourism just hotel stays? Is it transportation? Is it people taking tours? What constitutes tourism? There's lots of critics saying that, you can't really gauge what tourism is. But what if tourism is just a movement? And what would have to happen for companies to actually use your vacation money? So instead of donating to your local NGO or a nonprofit, just by the sake of going... Is someone getting fired? Oh yeah, someone is getting fired. You're lucky. The screen name isn't on there. Anyways, so are you gonna look at that or me? Have I been upstaged by a screen? Okay. So let's get back to on topic here. So what if tourism was used in the movement, and what if wealth distribution, what would have to happen? The main thing that would have to happen is that business models would have to change. It's not actually the products. The statistics I gave before about $5 actually staying in country for every $100 spent, that's the staggering statistic, right? It's that when you go on vacation, it's not the fact that you're lying on a beach and you're drunk and you're eating as much as you can in a compound resort that you could never get out of even if you tried. You might call it a resort, I would call it prison. And that might be your idea of a good time, but it doesn't matter. If the company that you traveled with changed its philosophy and changed the way it did business and changed the way wealth was distributed, the money was distributed from your vacation, just by you going on vacation could create wealth distribution, right? If it's done right. Because all that money's going locally, right? And if everyone did it, $10 trillion a year